just have a question for you, though.
Sure.
If I'm not convinced that God exists or that a God exists, what reasons should I have to be convinced?
Well, that's a misconception of what your position really entails. Although it is probably true that you're unconvinced, but what lies beneath what you claim is an unconvinced is a God denialism, right? So I could just simply say to you, do you believe it's necessary to reference God as the necessary precondition of facts? Do you believe that?
I would just say I would remain agnostic to that question.
No, I didn't. I said, do you positively believe that?
Oh, no, I don't.
Okay, so you believe it is not necessary to reference God as the precondition of facts. So what that consequently means is that you believe that it is not necessary to reference God.
No.
Yes.
I don't think that's how that works.
It's a true dichotomy. There's no escaping this.
Actually,
it's a true dichotomy. It's either you believe either you positively believe that it's necessary to reference God or not.
Yes, I would agree to that part. But my objection here is that even if I do not believe in that, doesn't mean I'm affirming the negation.
Who keeps muting me?
Who is muting you? Let me check.
Let's check the logs.
Yeah, by the way, I know you disagree, but you're not going to escape this. This is indefeasible.
Hey, stop muting him.
What's up, Kenny?
Okay.
Hold on.
Either you positively believe it's necessary to reference God, or you don't believe it's necessary to reference God. It's a true dichotomy.
Okay. See, can I give an example really quick?
You can, but you're wasting your time.
So,
because first of all, it's a category error. Because if you reference,
Darth hasn't even gotten to explaining how it entails the denial of God.
Yeah,
he hasn't even gotten to that.
Any other illustration you give, it's going to be referencing something that's not God, which will be a category error because God is in a unique category that nothing else is.
The example I'm giving is to understand the concept of a burden of proof.
You're not understanding, okay? Because the burden of proof has different requirements depending on category and context. God is in a unique category. God is a worldview. God is not an entity within a worldview discussion. Okay? So either you believe it is necessary to reference God as the necessary precondition, or you do not believe that.
Okay, I don't believe it.
Okay, so when you do not believe that it is necessary to reference God as the precondition of facts, then what that entails, excuse me, I have the hiccups, what that entails is that you believe that facts can be invoked as actual and intelligible, being independent of the necessity of referencing God. So you believe that facts are independent of God, in spite of the fact that you make a claim that you don't know.
May I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Can you demonstrate how this is an entailment? I'm not really convinced that this is a true entailment.
Okay. All right. Either you will believe in the necessity of referencing God or you will not. Well, the necessity for what? Necessitating that referencing God as the necessary precondition of facts. Mm-hmm. So if you don't believe that, but then you believe that there are facts, well, then you believe that those facts themselves do not necessitate referencing God. And if you believe that facts do not necessitate referencing God, then that entails that you believe that facts are independent.
Oh, yes. Okay, I would agree to that, yes.
Okay. If you believe that one fact is independent of God, then God cannot logically coexist in that world. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
In a world where God is, conceptually speaking, all facts by definition would derive and depend upon God. All facts would necessitate referencing God. In a world where God does not exist, then all facts would not necessitate referencing God. Why? Because the facts exist ontologically without God, because he doesn't exist. They would be independent of God. So the problem is that contemporary skepticism over the last generation has bastardized atheism as a kind of, oh, I'm unconvincedism, lacktheism. Now, there are even professional atheists who lambaste atheists in general for taking this view. It's called lacktheism, or I'm just unconvinced. Right? That the typical remark you'll hear on the atheist is, well, atheism is simply the rejection of the claim. Well, no, that is a gross misrepresentation of it. Okay, outwardly you may profess that it's merely the non-acceptance of the claim, but when you don't accept the claim, it means you believe something that negates the existence of God, whether you realize it or not. So people commit fallacies of reasoning without knowing it, or even being willing to acknowledge they've committed a fallacy. Okay? So the point is, you can be neutral about gold on Mars. You can be neutral as to whether there are quantities of water on Mars. But when it comes to God, God is not some super being that is encapsulated by some notion of reality. God will be defined as that which is fundamental, ultimate, and the source of all possibility and impossibility. So God, by definition, is not simply an entity, but it's also a worldview. It's called the creator-creature distinction. And in the creator-creature distinction, everything that is a creature, by necessity, has to reference God. If something is conceptualized as not being a creature, and by creature I don't mean necessarily animate, it means that it stands in causal relations to God as the metaphysical starting point. So whether one realizes it or not, if you refuse to affirm the necessity of referencing God as the necessary precondition of facts, then whatever in that refusal, then you will either be directly or indirectly denying the existence of God, and it's ironclad. This cannot be escaped.
Okay, I understand what you're saying now, and so my position is I reject facts referencing the necessity of God.
Which means if you reject that, then what that means is you believe that facts exist independently of God.
Yes. Okay, I would agree. That
good.
Position.
Then God cannot logically coexist in that world.
Yes, I would take that position, and
good.
My defense of this position would be, well, I have a question. Do you accept the principle of sufficient reasoning?
I accept the principle of a sufficient creator. Everything that exists has its explanation in God.
In God, okay.
Yeah, so, and by the way, why did you ask that question?
I asked that question is because, assuming you agree to the principle of sufficient reasoning.
No, did somebody just send that to you in a DM?
No, nobody sent. Oh, I think I know what you're trying to say here. No, I didn't.
Where'd you get that question from? Where did you get the idea? Where did you get the idea that the principle of sufficient reason has anything to do with the God question?
I got this idea is because you know what necessitarianism is. I'm assuming, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, you got it on Discord. It came from the Angstrike clan.
No, it didn't.
Yeah, it did.
If you want me to show you my DMs, I can.
Okay, that's funny.
No,
actually,
anyway, it's not important. I don't hold to per se the principle of sufficient reason. I hold to the principle of the sufficient creator. Everything that exists has its explanation in God.
Okay,
First cause.
Sure.
Tell him, King Darth. Tell him, King Darth.
Does anybody else have any questions they want to ask Darth? Because I don't think I can add anything to the conversation now.
Okay, well, what I'd like to know from you now is how is it that God does not exist? How did you determine that?
Well, it was all solely based off of your acceptance of that question I gave you, and you rejected that question, right? You hold the principle of sufficient God or whatever. I would ask a follow-up question, but I want to see if anybody else wants to.
Yeah, since I hold that God is the only concrete universal.
Oh, right? Okay. Can I ask why?
Why? Because that's what Christian theism teaches. God is the only concrete universal. In other words, God is the only thing that everything is universally tied to. Okay.
Okay, well, how do you know it's the Christian God?
How? Because the only way I could know, he would have to reveal himself. Would
So
there
you
be
think,
would there be another way?
I wouldn't know of another way.
No, it wouldn't. You not only you couldn't know of it because there couldn't be. You couldn't know of something that cannot be. All right. Now,
Okay.
what I'd like to know from you is, how is it that you arrived that there's no God? That's all. Simple question.
Okay, so the thing is, I would take the principle of sufficient reasoning as true because do you know what a contingent fact is?
Well, the problem is if you're going to state that anything is, then it's going to have the context of whatever is the source of all possibility and impossibility. Do you have that in mind?
Yes, I do have that in mind.
Good. What is it? What is it that makes anything and everything impossible then?
The law of non-contradiction.
Yeah, the law of non-contradiction is a universal abstraction. It doesn't stand in causal relations.
I think the
law of non-contradiction does not in any way permit or prohibit me from jumping to the moon in the next 10 minutes.
The law of non-contradiction isn't about the laws of physics. It determines logical possibility.
I listen. Do you think I'm not familiar with this?
I do think you are.
The law of non-contradiction does not stand in causal relations.
Okay, I have a question.
So I want to know then, what is it that makes anything impossible? Because it can't be the laws of logic. It may be the case that certain situations are impossible if they don't conform to the law of non-contradiction. But I'm talking about everything.
May I ask for clarification?
Yeah.
On what do you mean by possible and impossible? What type of possibility?
I'm talking about anything and everything.
If you talk about absolute possibility,
everything. Do you know what the word everything means?
Then that's in
everything. What makes everything that is impossible? What is there something that is singularly dictates why everything is impossible?
Yes, it would necessarily be the law of non-contradiction.
Okay, we've already gone over that. Why are you repeating that again when it's already been rebutted?
May I ask another question? Well,
no, you may not. I just asked you a question. Why are you repeating something that was already rebutted?
Because what we mean by impossible is false in all possible worlds. And
okay, listen to me. Listen to me. Don't bullshit me. Okay? I'm probably 3 times your age. Okay? You're now going into bullshit mode. Okay? 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 You're bullshitting me. Okay? You're giving me sophist responses. Okay? Now, I want to know, is there one thing that institutes and secures that everything is impossible?
Well, again, my answer would be the same, but I don't think you accept that.
Well, I've already rebutted that, and you haven't offered a counter rebuttal.
Well, I was trying to give you my counter, but you said it was bullshit.
No, that wasn't a counter rebuttal. That was sophist gobbledygook. Listen, do you think I'm stupid? Okay, I'm gonna be 60 this year. How old are you?
15.
Okay, you're 15 years old. I'm more than 3 times your age. Do you think you're going to bamboozle me with sophism? Do you know what sophism is?
Yes, I know what sophism is.
Okay, you're being a sophist right now. And I'm not using that as a get out of jail free card. You are literally being a sophist. Okay, you're using vocabulary and nomenclature and you're not being substantive. Is there one thing that singularly imposes all possibility? It's a simple question.
See, it is a simple question, but I think it's actually a loaded question.
It's not a loaded question. Tell me what a loaded question is. What's the definition of a loaded question?
Well, my understanding of a loaded question is a semantic primitive But if I can get you a denotation.
Listen to me. Okay, strike two. You're bullshitting me again. Okay.
Tell him, King.
Okay. You're bullshitting a semantic primitive. You're a bullshitter.
Okay.
You are a 15-year-old bullshitter, and it's steaming and smelly. All right. Now, in basic English, what is a loaded question?
A loaded question or a complex question is a question that contains a controversial assumption, such as questions may be used as a rhetorical tool.
Right, good. So you had time to look it up. Right.
Yeah.
Now, what is the controversial premise in my question?
The controversial premise is that you're making me say yes or no, but there needs to be an explanation to the yes or no.
No, you're not understanding. What is, if I say to you, have you stopped beating your wife? Okay. The unstated premise is that you were already that you acknowledge that you already were beating your wife. Okay. There's no controversial premise. All I said is, do you believe that there is one thing instituting all impossibility? What's the controversial premise there?
Again, the controversial premise in my
you bullshit me again, and we're going to be done.
In my understanding, it's that if I give an answer, that answer necessarily requires an explanation.
You're bullshitting me. You're 15 years old. How dumb do you think I am?
So the controversial premise is.
Do you understand that? Listen, you're 15 years old. Okay, I'm old enough to be your grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I wasn't. Just like Vision said to Ultron. Vision said, "Oh, I was born yesterday." I wasn't born yesterday. I've been debating for 10 years. I'm fairly experienced. I know when somebody's bullshitting me, especially a 15-year-old. Okay? Now, the point is this. There are certain verbal tactics that people pull when they get in an uncomfortable situation because they either don't know how to answer the question or they don't want to answer it. So they go, oh, that's a loaded question. It's not a loaded question. All I want to know is, do you believe that there is one thing that is fundamental that secures what's impossible? Do you believe that?
Beating your wife.
Okay.
Why is Parakeet muted? Who muted Parakeet?
King Darth.
I didn't. I don't know. Who muted
I muted him because you two were having a conversation. I didn't want him to jump in.
Okay. All right.
Be his ass, Darth. He's a fucking stupid atheist.
So, do you have an answer to the question?
BB.
Eat your wife.
No,
Why
is Cool
Geek muted?
I don't have an answer to the question. No.
Okay. Well, so therefore, you because you don't have an answer to the question, you forfeit your ability to speak intelligibly. Okay? Because in order to speak intelligibly, it means that some propositions are to have either a greater or a lesser value, or that some proposition are permissible and others are off limits. Therefore, whatever you say, I can just simply assert the converse and you can't object to it because nothing singularly imposes what's impossible. So in your world, nothing can be defended to be impossible. And if nothing's impossible, then all propositions are of equal value. And if all propositions are of equal value, then you can't speak intelligibly.
Okay.
Now, do you understand that since you have rejected God's existence by virtue of his disclosure of himself through creation and through the course of human history, and then finally recorded in Scripture, when you reject God and you say, oh, I am in no need of God, I'm unconvinced of God, what I have just shown you now, okay, that when you reject God, who is the creator and the source of all possibility and impossibility, you're now in a metaphysic where nothing can be designated to be impossible. Okay?
Okay.
I have a question, Darth.
Hey, Darth.
Done. Hold up. Yo, Darth.
Yeah. Who's speaking?
Zaji, the one who invited you. I was watching a lot of your debates or,
I'm looking for you on the screen. I'm looking for you on here. I don't see your name.
Oh, the nickname I have is that guy named Kratos. So.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
I was watching a lot of your discussions on Pal Talk or Google Hangouts. the one where it's usually titled Jack King Strike Destroys You, even though you really weren't debating him. I have a quick question about that situation. When it comes to realistic nihilists, Philip and Jack, usually the three main trolls you hate, you also hate Godless since the last time I listened.
Who said I hated them?
Well, I thought you said you hated them or put them on your troll list because you hated them.
No, I don't hate them. In fact, I pity them because they're going to hell. I find them to be reprehensible individuals. I think that they're disgusting human beings, but I don't hate them.
Well, mind I ask, what actually started the hate between you? Because the way Jack puts it is that on Pal Talk, it was the case that apparently you found his number, and every time he got close to his mic and tried to raise an objection, you would call him and like obstruct him from speaking. That's the reason that he said that he hated you, and you started like lying about it.
And he accused me of that?
Yes, I can get you the video if you want.
And where was his proof that I did this?
I don't know if he posted any.
Yeah, Jack has made a number of accusations about me. Jack is not somebody who I would trust. Jack is somebody who is by his own concession a moral nihilist.
Jack, I have a question.
Jack is. Hold on a second.
Go ahead.
Are you aware that by Jack's own concession, he has been engaging in stalking and harassing behavior on a daily basis for 10 years? Are you aware of that?
Yeah, I actually seen a lot of.
Okay, good. Then end the conversation about Jack. He's a mental case. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Well,
that's deranged behavior. So we're done with the discussion.
Oh yeah, but the main reason that I wanted to ask that was what actually started the hate between you guys? Like, what was the instance that
I explained to you? I don't hate Jack. I have expressed disgust and contempt, just like I express contempt for a lot of atheists. Okay, and when people engage in stalking and slanderous and defamatory behavior, I'm going to have contempt and disgust for them. I don't hate them because they're blind. They're deeply blinded by their own sin, and the wrath of God now abides upon them. Okay.
Okay. Well. Okay. I'll let someone.
Yo, Darth, I was gonna ask you a question.
No, I was talking.
What do you mean? Shut up! I'm trying to talk to Darth,
Baby,
smelly
I was
boy.
talking, Darth.
All right,
Baby.
yo, Darth, I have a question. If someone's trying to get into like theology, because I'm like trying to get into it, what tips do you have?
Well, the first thing is you have to become a Christian, right? What are you?
Mm-hmm. I'm currently like, I want to argue for a theist side because I grew up like as a Christian, and I want to like justify my beliefs, kind of.
Well, first of all, you have to be on the right side. You have to be born again. You have to come to the realization that your soul is damned as we speak. That it's like your foot is caught in the train tracks, and the train is screaming down the tracks at 60 miles an hour, and you can't pull your foot out. And you come to the realization that within 30 or 40 seconds, you're going to be dog food all over those train tracks. And then you cry out to your hiking buddy to help you pull your foot out, right? And you know that there's nothing that you can do to save yourself, but if he intercedes, he's going to save you. Well, you have to have that same attitude right now that your soul is under the wrath of God. The reason why people do not react this way is because they do not take seriously not only the existence of God, but that God is entirely righteous and holy and just. And what that makes us is evil and sinful and under his damnation. And it is only the common grace of God that lets our heart beat before Judgment Day. Mm-hmm. And that's gonna has to be the first step, where you realize that you have spiritual rabies, right? If you go to your uncle's picnic and you show up early and it's 98 degrees out, and you get a delicious cup of the fruit punch that your aunt made, and you start drinking, and your uncle comes screaming out of the woods like a maniac, knocks the cup out of your hand, you're going to say, what's wrong with you? And he says, I just took out a rabid raccoon that had drowned in the fruit punch. Now, what have you just realized about yourself?
Mm-hmm.
It
The
means
way you're describing it to me,
you just realized that you probably ingested rabies.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty gross.
Right. And guess what? You know what that means? It means you're going to be dead in 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
You have the sentence of death on you, right? And all of your self-effort will be to no avail. The only thing that'll save you is if you actually have the rabies vaccine administered by someone. Even if you go to a doctor and say, help me, do what he can, and he goes in and he gets the wrong vial and he gives you the coronavirus vaccine, right?